AI company CEOs warned you in 2025 that artificial intelligence could make workers economically worthless. Their lobbyists spent millions fighting the politicians trying to protect you. Understanding this contradiction reveals who the permanent underclass fear actually serves. Chapter 1. Origin of Worthlessness Fear. In 2025, Jasmine's son sat at her desk in San Francisco, scrolling through her social media feed. The same phrase kept appearing from young tech workers: escape the permanent underclass, engineers at startups, product managers at AI companies, all saying the same thing. If you don't build wealth with AI right now, you will become economically worthless. The idea spread fast. Dario Amodei, the CEO of the AI company Anthropic, went on television and said roughly half of entry-level white-collar jobs could disappear in a few years. The fear was everywhere. But this fear has a history, a much longer history than AI. The first appearance of underclass in an American context was in 1963, in a book by the economist Gunnar Myrdal called Challenges to Affluence. He was watching the post-war automation boom. Factories were automating, workers in cities were getting laid off through no fault of their own, and they were struggling to retrain. Myrdal called them an underclass, not just because they lost their income, but because they lost their place in society. They were excluded from civic life, from belonging. That's a different kind of loss than just a paycheck. What makes the AI version different is the word permanent. The idea that this time, it won't be one group or one industry. It will be everyone. Because AI will get so good it can do any job a human can do. If that's true, then every worker ends up economically worthless, and every capital owner gets infinitely richer. So the question becomes, who benefits from spreading this fear? Chapter 2. Companies warning and profiting. In 2021, a small economics team at OpenAI sat in a conference room presenting their latest research. They'd been studying how fast AI would replace different jobs, which industries would go first, what the timeline looked like. Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, had personally set up this team after writing a blog post warning that AI would increase returns to capital and decrease returns to labor unless something was done. Then a new hire walked in. Chris Lehane, a veteran political operative who'd run one of the biggest crypto lobbying shops in Washington. He looked at the economics team's research and had a different idea. Why are we publishing studies about how AI might displace workers? That makes us look bad. We should be showing how AI helps people. It's the kind of pivot that makes you wonder what research you're not seeing. The economics team's independence was reduced. One former employee put it this way: we don't want to talk about a problem until we have the solution for it. Which means you stop talking about problems at all. For a long time, OpenAI went quiet about job displacement. But in the last few months, they flipped again. They published a white paper proposing a 32-hour workweek, a public wealth fund, AI dividends for every American. Nice ideas on paper. Here's the gap between their words and their actions. OpenAI's super PAC, Political Action Committee called Leading the Future, spent millions trying to defeat New York Congressman Alex Boris. And what was Boris pushing? An AI dividend plan. Almost identical to the ideas in OpenAI's own white paper. They spent millions crushing a politician for supporting their own policy. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. Anthropic's story is different but just as contradictory. They warn more honestly than anyone. Their CEO publishes essays about AI creating an underclass. Their research teams study how Claude is harming users. But their main products are Claude Code and Enterprise Agents, the tools that directly replace workers. Honest warnings built on a business model that profits from the exact displacement they describe. 2 companies, 2 strategies, 1 shared result. They both benefit from the disruption they warn about. But the question that follows is, if the fear benefits them, who's actually getting hurt? Chapter 3. Who is at risk? In a small office park outside Minneapolis, a 50-something woman sits at a desk doing what she's done for 25 years. Processing insurance claims, entering data, managing spreadsheets. She's been told her company is testing new AI software. She doesn't use social media much. She's never heard the phrase permanent underclass. But she's about to become part of it. This is who the apocalyptic coverage misses. The most vulnerable people share 3 characteristics. Their job involves cognitive computer tasks that AI has gotten very good at. Their industry has weak protections, no strong unions, no medical licensing boards mandating human oversight, and they don't have an easy path to retrain into something new. The obvious story is that tech workers in Silicon Valley are most at risk. They're the ones spreading the fear on social media. But the tech workers have savings, networks, and skills to pivot. The actually vulnerable are people no one is talking about: clerical workers, administrative assistants, data entry professionals. Mostly women between 40 and 60, in suburban and rural areas, with high school educations but not college degrees. If they lose their job at 50, retraining into a completely new career isn't hard. For many, it's impossible. That's a different kind of vulnerability than anything being discussed in the AI memes. The second vulnerable group is younger, but no less trapped. New college graduates entering the worst entry-level job market in years. Many of them relied on AI throughout college: ChatGPT for essays, Claude for problem sets, AI tutors for concepts they never fully learned. And now hiring managers are starting to notice. The question being asked behind closed doors: why would I hire a 22-year-old with Claude Code when I could just use Claude Code directly? The tool they use to get through school has made them less employable at the exact moment they enter the workforce. The AI companies aren't telling you that software engineering is uniquely vulnerable to automation. It happens entirely on a computer, has objective tests for success, has a mountain of training data online. But a huge portion of the economy runs on work that can't be captured in a training set. Salespeople who build trust over years, nurses who read a room, mechanics who diagnose by sound and touch, tacit knowledge that was never written down. So AI doesn't have access to it. So the real story isn't that everyone becomes worthless. It's that specific groups are being funneled toward precarity, while the apocalyptic narrative obscures exactly who they are. And when those groups realize they've been left behind, something else happens. Chapter 4. Consequences of belief in worthlessness. In Indianapolis, a city councilman came home one night to find his front door shot 13 times. The gunman left a note: "No data centers." All caps. He'd approved a data center project in his district. You might think these attacks are about construction disruption or property values. That's the surface explanation. But the data center bans in Maine, the Molotov cocktail thrown at Sam Altman's house, the armed protests, they're all symptoms of the same underlying condition. People feel they have no democratic way to respond to AI, not one legitimate channel to express their fear. Most people don't know anyone working in AI. They don't know anyone in AI policy. If they're terrified about their jobs, calling a congressperson feels futile. The lobbying money is too powerful. So they take the only action they can see: block the physical infrastructure, stop the data centers, throw a Molotov cocktail. And this creates its own destructive cycle. The companies see the backlash and say, people are afraid of progress, we need to move faster. The protesters see the companies and say, they don't care about us, we need to stop them harder. Meanwhile, politicians are just starting to wake up. AI job concerns are genuinely bipartisan. Everyone worries about their livelihood. But there are still almost no concrete policies being proposed. Most congressional officers don't have real plans yet. What they have is growing pressure from constituents who see the layoffs and feel the ground shifting. The deeper issue is that people don't just fear losing their job. They fear that if they do, there's no safety net. Healthcare is tied to employment. Unemployment insurance runs out in 6 months. Retraining programs are notoriously ineffective. When people say they're afraid of becoming part of a permanent underclass, what they're really saying is, if I lose my job through no fault of my own, no one's going to help me. Chapter 5. Can the permanent underclass be avoided? There's a version of this story that ends with resignation. The idea that the permanent underclass is technologically inevitable. But looking at how another country is handling it suggests something different. Jasmine's son traveled to China recently. China already had more than 1 in 5 young people unemployed before AI, because the education system produced more graduates than the economy could absorb. So AI didn't create the unemployment problem, it existed already. And the Chinese government, which cares enormously about preventing social unrest, made it very hard for companies to lay people off for AI reasons. Jasmine's aunt works at a state-owned enterprise. She told Jasmine, "I use AI to do my job faster. I know AI can now do the work of 2 people. But they're not allowed to lay me off for that reason. So everyone uses AI to make their jobs easier and nobody gets fired." The permanent underclass is framed as a technological inevitability. AI advances, jobs disappear, the underclass emerges. But China's approach shows something else. A government can decide that employment stability matters more than corporate efficiency. The permanent underclass isn't a prediction of what AI will do. It's a prediction of what we choose not to prevent. That's a harder question than can AI do your job? Now, China is an authoritarian state. No one should look to it as a model. But the principle is worth examining. That choice exists. Three things will determine whether the permanent underclass becomes real or stays a fear. First, industry concentration. If one or two companies control the AI infrastructure that replaces workers, the wealth concentrates with them. If AI capability is widely distributed, accessible to small businesses and workers themselves, the displacement looks very different. Second, policy response. The 2028 presidential campaigns will define what's politically possible. Wage insurance, AI dividends, shorter work weeks, public wealth funds, retraining guarantees, the range of ideas is visible. The question is whether any get implemented before mass displacement shows up in the data. And third, democratic channels. Right now, citizens have no way to influence AI development except blocking data centers. If governments don't create legitimate channels for input and protection, the illegitimate channels will keep expanding. Here's what I'm watching. Will the companies that profit from this fear ever be held accountable for the gap between their policy papers and their political actions? And when displacement starts hitting the groups no one's talking about, the clerical workers, the over-reliant graduates, will the safety net be ready? Or will we discover that the permanent underclass wasn't a prediction, but a plan? That's the story I'll keep following, because the underclass isn't permanent unless we decide it is.